You wanted it. You begged for it. You demanded it. Here's part 2. So I want to apologize for the huge time span in between parts, as I may or may not have lost the original files. So now we're continuing on part 2, and keep in mind everything from here on out is basically free reign and more or less guidelines. This is the part where you can now customize on anything you want on the puppet, down to the skin, to any accessories that you want to put on them. This is where you get free reign to really make it your own. So with that, let's head back to the video. Okay, so here we're moving on to skinning. So basically you take the felt that you're going to use for your skin, cut it out to about the size of the head, and now's the part where you spray the adhesive down onto the puppet head and start stretching it around and make sure it fits the way you want it to. I chose to go all the way around and just sew up the loose ends of the back. And even on the nose, I decided to go ahead and spray a little bit down onto it and use a small piece of felt to give it a different colored nose. And again, just like before, we start wrapping around and then start trimming it down to size to fit the puppet. I actually went back later and actually sewed the cloth into the foam nose to give it a little bit more of a cleaner look onto it. Especially over time, that stuff will kind of peel away from the foam. So for the mouth, you just want to kind of go ahead and measure out the size of your mouth, and then just basically cut it down to size in a gigantic circle until it fits properly in the mouth. And again, just spray the adhesive down and just make sure everything's flat and everything good. You can also add in the tongue like I did, just using some scrap foam and just kind of whittling it down to shape. I actually went back later and actually used a pink Sharpie to actually color it and actually give it just a little bit more detail, with a special emphasis on down the middle to give it that kind of depression in the tongue that you see in some of them. You can go buck wild on decorations. I decided to go put hair on them, and just with some leftover felt and just kind of work it in, shape it in, put in pieces here and there. And once you're all done, you spray it down with a little bit of foam, a little bit of adhesive, and then voila. Make sure you attach everything, including the eyes. I also decided to go with just a little bit of color around the iris, just to give them that kind of look to it. Don't forget to keep checking on what it is. And then I also decided to put a hat on them, just to give them that kind of more human touch to them, I guess you can say. Don't forget to always go in and check and inserting your hand in there and just feeling if it feels natural or not. Now the arms are totally optional. If you want, you can take long pieces of upholstery foam and actually start whittling down to the size of the arm shape that you want. And what I did was take a long piece and cut it in half. That way you have like just the generic length of it. It should work nicely with the puppet and anything else you want to do to it. So I just took some beads and some bead necklaces from the dollar store and started draping them in the middle. This will actually give the puppet a little bit of weight to go onto it and make it a little bit easier for the puppeteer to actually maneuver around and make it just a little bit more flexible, especially if you're using like pull arms like you would on like a Kermit puppet, for instance. One of the ideas I had was to actually use thread and actually sew the beads into the foam, but unfortunately that problem didn't work. So what I did was I draped the beads into the foam and actually stitched the foam together like a gigantic tube. As you can see right here, I'm starting to go in between the foam and just make a gigantic loop to close out the foam that should be able to retain its shape. And from there, you just rinse and repeat, just going all the way down and keep on going. Rinse and repeat for this next step for the next arm, and then you're all done. As you can see, you have a little bit of play, but you still retain the quickness, and the arm's a lot more pliable. So once you have both your arms, now's the part where you go into hands. I decided to make mine posable, so what I did, I drew a quick outline of a hand and cut it out of cardboard to make it easier to work off the template. Now's the part where you can again customize as your own. I chose for a more classic puppet looking with only 3 fingers. Once the hand was cut out, I decided to make another template on foam to use as a backboard, and then just rinse and repeat for both sides. A little quick tip for the hands, cut just a little bit deeper into the foam than you would like. This will actually help a little bit later, because otherwise you will actually be cutting into the foam a little bit deeper to make the hands a little bit more givable and have a little bit more to work with as far as posability and curl of the fingers. Here I decided to actually experiment a little bit and see if I could actually wedge it into the foam, but I actually ditched the idea and went used the cardboard template to actually base everything off of. Here I used actually aluminum wire, or aluminum decorative wire as a matter of fact, to actually make it easier to pose just by bending it into shape and twisting it into the actual size of the fingers. Actually ended up having to make the fingers individually and then chaining them all together into a kind of poseable hand that was easier to move. Once you're all done, go ahead and give it a test fit and make sure everything's spaced out correctly. And right now I basically went to town on the hot glue, and be careful if you're using this on metal. It's actually a little bit more warmer than I knew ahead of time. So again, go ahead and just go over with the hot glue and secure your foam to the cardboard as a back plate, and they will squish together, and you should have a little bit easier time to pose them, and now's the time you can actually test it. As I was doing this tutorial, it was a lot of trial and error, and as you can see, a lot of it paid out, and actually a lot of it had led me a little nip and tuck here and there, but eventually you work it down enough and you will actually get what you're looking for, especially the cardboard had to be worked in. And that's it, ladies and gents. You officially created your own puppet. Now you can go from all the way down to basic materials to something like this.
What are you guys doing to sew shirts in a few minutes?
What?
Yeah. It does. It's like 3 minutes.
Just a little bit of puppeteering work and a couple of helping hands always make it a little bit easier to go into. And with that, ladies and gents, thank you so much for tuning in. I do apologize again for the time gap going in between it as life happens, unfortunately, and files go missing. Again, if you guys have any comments or any suggestions for any future videos, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And until then, we're going to see you in the next video. So peace out, guys.